How insulted should I feel? My workplace just made us watch Dave Ramsays' 7 Steps. Context: high cost of living state. I make barely over minimum wage. I felt so embarrassed sitting there being told to budget better, start an emergency fund, etc. Why would they even do this? No raise given and the company people know I make nothing. It was humiliating. How could anyone think that was okay? Or is it just me? It's a way for management to pat themselves on the back in order to feel good and justified about paying so little. Hey look, we're trying to help our employees. It's definitely intentional, to make you feel like the problem is you, rather than their wage theft. Tell them how the video pointed out how underpaid you are. PFFFFF. Dave Ramsays a grifter. His advice is usually just a form of "have you tried not being poor?" That dickhead fired an employee for being pregnant out of wedlock and 12 others for having premarital sex. He claimed they were breaching some kind of morality code he tries to enforce. Reminds me of the time McDonald's put out an example budget for their frontline staff that did not include some basic life stuff and did include getting a second job. I would have walked out. They can't force you to do anything. Corporate gaslighting. Your workplace is trying to use a far-right grifter who uses his Christian faith to abuse his co-workers as a way to shame you for not paying your bills. They're trying to shift the blame onto personal responsibility, a term that is almost exclusively used to victim shame people in poverty. They want you to believe the reason you struggle to pay your bills is because you're bad if money or some other excuse, and not them on underpaying you. It's not okay. You can't budget your way out of poverty. That being said, good budgeting skills are kind of rare, so maybe there were some useful nuggets in there for some people. Every time I've tried to budget properly, they change the game and pull the rug out. They're gaslighting you into believing you're the problem while they're out buying themselves the latest model car for the 2nd time this year and planning their 3rd family cruise vacation. You can't budget yourself out of poverty if you just don't make enough. Did you get paid for it? Regardless of your employer's intent, following his step-by-step got me out of debt $10K. In 3 years making close to minimum wage. That said, give a livable wage, not a lecture. Raises hand. This is interesting and all, but you can't budget yourself out of poverty. Dave Ramsays' labor violations and lawsuits makes any employers showing his nonsense a pretty big red flag. Also, all the religion stuff makes it really inappropriate. He's an asshole, ignore his advice. Find a better job. And when you turn in your notice, list watching the video certainly brought to light you are being underpaid. Tell them you called Dave and he said you should be making more money. You mean, Dave, I don't think stimulus is important because $1,400 shouldn't matter to you, Ramsay? Or so you mean, Dave, you should pay off your lowest balance credit card, not your highest interest rate credit card first, Ramsay? Or do you mean, Dave, active managed mutual funds are better than passive EFTs, Ramsay? No. I bet you were shown, Dave, pay off all debt before investing a dime into the stock market, Ramsay, because that will reduce the 401k contributions that your employer might have to make. Fuck Dave Ramsay. He's just awful and a terrible financial advisor. If you are capable of staying there, you should bring it up at every possible moment for a while. If you are buying a Coke, here's an extra 15 cents I'm setting aside for my retirement. Get a coffee can and write house fund on it and drop in a quarter throughout the day. Go directly to management and express to them that every year they do not give you a full inflation raise, you're actually taking a pay cut. That is not acceptable. If you've been there for a while without getting a decent raise, then there have been several pay cuts. I assume they were annoyed about people asking for cost of living raises. Business owners don't really care about employee financial struggles. They mostly look at how to keep wages a fixed cost. On the other hand, they'll complain about loyalty when an employee finds a better paying job. That's a bunch of horse shit. I worked at a place where the management would buy boxes of whatever the New York Times' bestseller management-style book was and give those to department heads and insist they read them. Waste of resources and time. I had a pool guy who worshipped Dave Ramsay and would talk about him all the time. He also listened to Joe Rogan. I had to fire him because he wasn't smart enough to maintain a pool system. Nothing like a rich person telling a minimum wage person that all they need is to budget to make ends meet. Dave Ramsay is a sexist, bigoted douchebag. And your management is clueless. About 10 years ago I liked his advice for a lot of stuff tbh, but I always knew take it with a grain of salt, and at a certain point you can outgrow him. He did help me with the envelope idea of his. But I don't care for him now. It's basically just don't be poor. You okay? In a word, very. Dave Ramsay was born into a moneyed family. His parents were real estate developers. He doesn't know what poor is, and I guarantee he has never done manual labor or worked for someone else in his life, except maybe his parents, and they don't count. He's completely out of touch with reality, and it shows. Dave Ramsay? The asshole that fired a woman for getting pregnant while being unmarried? That pos Dave Ramsay? Ah, fantastic. This means you'll be giving us a raise so that we can do this? Or maybe rental agreements within walking distance so that we can afford to live and commute and have enough left over at this pay level to invest and save. No? Then, how does one word of this apply to me? Here's a spreadsheet with my budget. See the income total here? And the bare minimum, eating ramen and tap water, expenses here? See how they don't add up? Please to explain. Dave Ramsay is a decent budgeting and debt counselor, nothing revolutionary, but good, that utterly failed at higher finance and strategic level planning. Also, up to some shady crap referring to securities business he has part ownership of, but does not hold a financial license. It's to prepare you for the next no raise, because if you just budget better, not eat, not have health issues, and praise Jeebus a little, you wouldn't be in this situation now, would you? See, it's all your fault. His program changed my life. 60k in debt to 45k in assets. It can be done, but it's a long, slow, horribly painful process. He's such a piece of shit too. People with a lot of money don't realize how little wiggle room middle-class workers have. They must think they make half of what I make, they should be able to save half as much and have half as much expendable budget, but in reality it's they make half as much as me and pay about 80 of what I do on housing and utilities, so they have no savings and no expendable budget. I worked at a large insurance company you can find on the Fortune 50 list. They did massive layoffs in 2017, 2018 and had a financial advisor come in and tell us to have a garage sale to sell our assets. I felt like a fucking dope for dialing into that meeting. What are David Ramsay's 7 steps? It's essentially just trying to brainwash you. Quit immediately. I would have walked out. Screw that guy. Quit ASAP, fuck these cheap bastards. Use his advice to criticize how your boss spends company money. What if you quit by submitting a financial report that showed they, in fact, are the problem? Same story regarding plastics and pollution. Put the harness on the individual so they can continue to pay a pittance and avoid as many payouts as possible. It's corporate greed. Sad thing, there is nothing illegal and they know it's not like you all could drop the job and try and find a new job cause they aren't paying you enough to save. This is what wage theft and corporate slavery is. Yay, there's been a big push in the financial wellness space for employee benefits the last couple of years, and some companies do it just to check the box rather than taking a meaningful look at what financial wellness would actually look like for their lowest paid employees. They do that to push the blame off on you. It's not the company's fault people can't survive, you gotta budget your poverty wages better.